The Pittsburgh Penguins are making moves, and they've made a sneaky good signing. This has major implications for the team moving forward. We're going to break down why and some interesting comments from GM Kyle Dubas on the future of this team and what he's planning heading into next season. You're not going to want to miss any of this, so stay tuned for this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with your Pittsburgh Penguins as we head into a very busy offseason, as we know, and Kyle Dubas has alluded to, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But Mark, let's get into the first order of business today. The Pittsburgh Penguins have made some moves, which is very interesting considering that Wilkes-Barre Scranton has been eliminated from the playoffs. We'll get into that as well. But they've made some transactions. They've sent goaltenders Sergey Murashov, Taylor Gauthier, and forwards Gabe Klassen and Logan Patella down to the Wheeling Nailers. And I think these are very, very interesting moves and moves that Penguins fans actually should care about for the development of these players. And one player in particular that we're going to get to, and that, of course, is goaltender Sergey Murashov. I mean, all Penguins fans know about this guy at this point. Like, he is going to be an elite goaltender in the NHL, I think, at some point, obviously continuing his development. But I think it's a good thing that he's going back down to the ECHL so he can continue to play this season. But what are your thoughts on this? And again, I think that it's just something to get him into more games before this season officially wraps up.
I mean, Murashov's been playing great at every level. We've seen him in the MHL, in the Junior League, for the KHL, dominating. We see him in the KHL, playing outstanding. Same in the AHL. He had a few stints with the Penguins, but the biggest thing with being this Penguins organization is the goaltending situation is kind of up in the air. Tristan Jarry is someone that fans either love or hate. Let's be honest here. There's no middle ground on Jarry. So if Dubas is looking at bringing in young goaltenders, they have one in the system, a fourth-round pick, I believe, is an awesome sign. Listen, in the KHL, we know a lot of times they don't like playing players that are set to join the NHL at some point. They have something against this, and whatever that may be, we know that maybe he didn't get a lot of starts in the KHL due to this. He played with Locomotive, I believe it was 6 games, putting up good numbers, the MHL for Locomotive, playing outstanding. So I do see a bright future for this guy. We've seen him play outstanding in the AHL, and it's going to be really nice to see him maybe even debut for the Penguins next season at some point, especially if they go the route of wanting to move on from Jarry and bring a younger guy up.
Absolutely. And if you look at his stats in the AHL so far in his very young career in North America, 16 games played, he has 12 wins, and he went on a ridiculous win streak this year. So he was putting up some insane numbers. So again, I have no doubt that this guy is going to, if they're patient with him and continue with his development the way they're going, he is going to be an elite goaltender in the NHL. And something interesting about him too, he catches right. So that's something that kind of throws shooters off sometimes too. Like, you never really see too many right catching goaltenders. So that could be something, to look forward to in the future. A couple other things to touch on in terms of movement as well. They've also signed Logan Patella down to the Wheeling Nailers as well. This is an interesting case. I mean, he had a pretty decent season in the ECHL all year. I think they just called him up to kind of be, a black ace like sometimes NHL teams do in the playoffs and kind of get some experience there. He had, he did play some games in the AHL last year and this year. Nothing too crazy with this player, but another guy I did want to touch on, Mark, is Gabe Klassen, because this guy was like borderline elite. You can see from the stats here in junior hockey with 106 points in 67 games in his final year. So hasn't really translated, although he had a decent year at the pro level in the ECHL, but it hasn't really translated to the pro level with 43 points in 65 games. And then obviously being called up for a few games and getting 3 points in 6 games in the AHL. But, what are you seeing from this player as well? And I think that it's just another case of he's 21 years old. He had a great career in junior. They're just trying to get him used to maybe playing some pro hockey too.
I mean, the biggest thing is looking at some of these guys being undrafted. If they turn into an NHL player, that's finding a diamond in the just dirt. You're getting a guy that can come in and immediately make an impact. We've seen him play very well in the juniors, coming in, playing fine at the pro level. So maybe we see him continue to develop. And the biggest thing with these guys, listen, if they don't turn into an everyday NHL player, you still have someone that can make the jump from the AHL up to the NHL, and someone that you can keep with Scranton in the AHL to help develop the young guys. If you have a full team of all rookies in the AHL, they're not going to really develop. You need these guys to help build. And I think this is where Dubas is doing a great job bring in faces that are high risk, high reward, and not even a high risk because you're not actually spending draft capital to bring these guys in.
Exactly. I mean, you're signing him as a free agent at a junior. So many teams do that, obviously, after their overage season. So it's a very interesting case. And again, they're just kind of getting his feet wet, I think, at the ECHL level this season. And, you know, he got a couple points. He's a half a point a game player at the AHL level right now. So we'll see what he does in the future. But one other person I wanted to touch on, I think it's actually a very sneaky good signing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, is they signed Tommy Budnick out of the OHL. He was another overager. He will be signed to an AHL contract for next year, so he will be going pro. This is a guy I think Penguins fans should actually be very excited about. He's a solid defensive defenseman out of the OHL. He was traded for at the deadline this year as a rental for the Brantford Bulldogs, who were expected to go on a run this year. They're one of the best teams in the entire league, the best team in the East. The East was a lot weaker than the West in the OHL this year, but a really good player nonetheless. And it was a little bit disappointing for Brantford. They lost in the second round. They're supposed to go on a deep run. So obviously becomes a free agent. And he doesn't really have an avenue right now to play in the AHL because, as we were going to get to, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins have been eliminated from playoff contention. So I imagine he would have went on an ATO there, but not the case. But I'm very excited for this player. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this player specifically, Mark, but I think this is somebody that, again, is a sneaky good signing out of the OHL, and another guy who kind of went undrafted and is an overager now.
I mean, the biggest thing is you're getting a defensive defenseman that played outstanding in the OHL, and a lot of fans might look at this and say, hey, why won't he join the team this year, next year, the year after? The biggest thing is defensive guys take a little longer to develop. We see with a lot of guys coming out of the OHL, even guys drafted as you're getting a free agent signing out of him as well. But a lot of these defensemen take a while to grow. So a couple of years in the AHL, we could see him maybe start to take the next jump as he matures and gets better at his player at the pro level. We could see him jump into this Penguins lineup and maybe shock a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that we were even talking off camera about is, you know, sometimes, like you alluded to, defensive defensemen take a while to kind of build up to what they are at the NHL level. And Jacob Slavin, for example, was never exactly what he is at this point. It took him a while to get up to what some people think is the best defensive defenseman in the league, right? So it does take a minute sometimes. But let's jump into this before we wrap up here. Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins have officially been eliminated in 2 games because the AHL playoffs are very weird like that. In the first round this year, I did want to mention that, you know, they were called out for being soft by the Lehigh Valley Phantoms in the first game. Not so soft in the second game, so there was some pushback. They did ultimately lose, which was, you know, not great. But I wanted to touch on this more specifically before we wrap up, because we've seen a lot of what's happening with the prospects. There was a lot of guys sent back down to the AHL level to try and go on a run. That didn't end up happening, but there's a lot of them that will be back in training camp trying to get roster spots. And Kyle Dubas spoke out and said that they're not going to do a full rebuild. They want to kind of retool on the fly, do kind of what the Washington Capitals have done. And if you want to pause and read this for more in-depth, into what Kyle Dubas said, feel free to pause and read this. But, he basically said that he's not going full rebuild. He's going to, retool on the fly. But I think a lot of the young guys will have something to do with that. Do you think that is the correct direction for this team? I do. And I do wonder, what steps these younger guys like a Koivunen or, Rutger McGroarty are going to take coming into next year. Do you think this is the right direction for the team?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that still has Sidney Crosby. You cannot rebuild with the best two-way player in the NHL right now. So it is the direction you have to go. Yes, you need to retool. You need to bring in young guys that can kind of take the next jump, have good years on cheap contracts. But I do think Dubas is in a situation where they have to figure out what to do with the vets. Do they want to get a little younger while they retool, or do you want to just inject some young guys into this lineup with the veterans and just kind of hope it meshes faster than we expect so they can get back into the playoffs?
Absolutely. I think it's going to be interesting to watch what they do, because they have a lot of really good prospects that we've been covering on the channel the last couple of weeks, the last month or so, since the Penguins have been eliminated from the playoffs, which don't really cost too much towards the salary cap, but they have a lot of salary cap space this summer that you can go out and maybe not get a bunch of guys. You want to be careful because you want to see how these young guys develop and what you're going to have to pay them in a couple of years. But you can go out and get another difference maker, right? And you had a couple of guys like Rickard Rakell who had, career years last year. And yes, you didn't make the playoffs, but you can build on stuff like that and rely on players like that to be leaders for the younger guys. So I actually don't think they're in that bad of a spot. Yes, they might miss the playoffs again next year, but I don't think that they're trying to do that. It is possible that they end up missing the playoffs, but I think they're gunning to try and make the playoffs next year, retool on the fly like Washington did, and rely on some of the younger guys to bring that skill and get them some experience as well. So it's going to be very interesting. We want to hear what you have to say about some of these moves in the comments, and of course, your thoughts on not rebuilding for the Pittsburgh Penguins, because Kyle Dubas does not want to go that way. And again, I think we both agree that that's probably a good idea. So we want to hear what you have to say in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.